This weekend is broke up with my boyfriend in six in phone call by text. Like so the link to the video will be the description below. Go and check them out. So let's into this vaccine in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and yes, you read the title correctly. I broke up with my boyfriend of 2.5 years in a 6-minute phone call.
6 minutes.
Now, you might be like, man, that's super cold and that's evil, and I would like to provide some context to this. So, here we go. And at the end, I will also explain some things that I learned from this and everything in between. So before you hate comment, make sure you actually watch the video because the title is a little bit clickbaity. So first of all, this was the first relationship I've ever been in. This was my first real kiss. This was my first everything. And we fell into this relationship pretty quickly. I had just started university. He was just basically starting school as well. We ended up living together and having a dog, and honestly, the relationship was really good. It had its downsides, it had its problems, but in terms of a first relationship, it was kind of everything that I could have asked for. We're gonna call him Trent for this video. Honestly, no hate to Trent. I still hold a lot of love for him. It was kind of like wrong place, wrong time situation, but yeah, we really made a good go of it. We traveled together. We were a full-on couple. We did Christmas together. We hung out with each other's family and friends. A lot of his friends are still very close friends of mine, and I love them so much, and I genuinely wish nothing but the best for him. But basically what ended up happening was partially COVID. COVID sent me home from university. I was living in a big city and with my boyfriend, and then COVID happened and I no longer had a reason to be in the city because school got put online. And yeah, things fell apart pretty quickly. After about 2 months, I was constantly going up and visiting him and trying to make it work and FaceTiming and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I sensed a huge amount of distance and just a lack of interest and effort, which, if you know me, effort is the most important thing. So that was a little frustrating. And it all culminated in a 6-minute and 28-second phone call where I asked him if he still wanted to be in the relationship, and he replied with, "I don't know." To which I replied, "Well, I do know, and that's that." And I remember at the very end of the phone call, I said to him, wow, 2.5 years of love and dedication and affection and growing together ended in a 6-minute phone call. And all he replied with was, yeah. So I hope with that context, you don't think I am the monster that the title of this video might portray. But essentially, this relationship ended, and that was that. And I will tell you, if you have experienced a first love, sort of the death of a first love and a relationship like this, man, maybe you can relate, but it took me a good 2 years to get over this relationship. I was never really given a proper reason as to why he kind of stopped caring or being involved in the relationship. And that was really hard for me. I think I was really looking for a concrete answer, I've gained weight, or I'm no good, or, I've met someone else or whatever, but I never got any closure. And to this day, I don't. And I think it really helped me learn that you don't always get closure and you don't always get to have a reason why. And so that was pretty productive for me, but very damaging at the same time.
Yeah.
So what it taught me in many ways, first of all, I'm again really glad that my first relationship was really constructive. It wasn't a fling. It wasn't some, quick hookup or something. I genuinely fell in love, and I absolutely have no doubt that he loved me as well. we really built a life together and spent so much time together and got to do so many fun and beautiful things. And I have the photos and the videos to remember them by, and the fond memories. But like I said, that closure thing was very difficult, and I really retreated into myself after that, and I didn't want to talk to anybody new. And when I found out that like a few months later he was dating someone else, that was a pretty big devastating blow. There was a whole bunch of messy drama that happened afterwards that I won't get into, but I'll just let you know there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of difficulty and strife, and bad decisions were made on both sides.
Wow.
Definitely. I maintained that I was the better person, but he might not have the same opinion. So sorry, Trent, if you're watching, but no hate. Yeah, I think the relationships are complex. I mean, there are songs and plays and movies and so many things in between that try and put it into words, put it into live action or drama. The struggles we have as relationships, and I think gay relationships are very similar. You know, obviously there are some very big differences between heterosexual and homosexual couples, but one of the things I really loved about our relationship is how normal it seemed. You know, this was my first experience of what a gay relationship can be, and I gotta tell you, it was so normal in the best ways, and it was so extraordinary in the best ways as well. I don't often talk about my personal life on here, but I figured sharing some of the things I learned, I became a lot more outgoing. My partner, Trent, was not a very outgoing person at the time, and so it kind of forced me to be the one to facilitate, you know, okay, we're doing this, we're going here, we're talking to these people, we have to go this place, and then we have to move over here, and we got to get on a train or whatever. And I think that really brought me out of my shell. Making really good friends throughout his friend network was amazing. You know, some of these people are still my best friends today, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that was fantastic. I think having the experience of like a long-term relationship like that, like 2.5 years, it's quite different than I think a lot of our short-term relationships that we have. And so it's kind of nice to have that long-term relationship experience so early on, and kind of the first thing that we did. So I really appreciate that. That was fantastic. Sort of the dynamics of like meeting the other person's family and friends was really interesting. He came from a very interesting family, and I think they really accepted me in some ways, and you know, the extended family did not accept the whole thing in other ways. But the extended family is always going to be interesting. You know, there's always going to be that crazy uncle or the funny grandpa or whoever it is. So you do learn a lot from that, and you pick a lot up from that. So that was quite interesting. And at the end of the day, it made me way better at going on dates, meeting people, forming connections. I think when it first ended, it was so hard to accept that I would ever find someone else. You know, I really strongly believed like that was it. That was the love of my life, and I blew it. And this relationship is over, and there will never be another one. Having been in relationships since then, I can tell you that's absolutely not the case. And once you get through your first love, you really do learn a lot about what you're looking for and what you value. And then the next relationships come along, and they can be like a breath of fresh air, because you realize like, oh, this is what it means to have good communication and to not have to guess what my partner's thinking. This is what it means to really feel safe and validated, to use one of the trendy words of today. To feel validated in who I am and what I'm bringing to the table and how I'm contributing to this relationship. So there were a lot of factors like that I really vibed with, I was really happy with. There were, and thankfully my best friends are great at reminding me of the bad stuff, because I'm someone who tends to put that all under the rug and just say, oh no, it was beautiful from day one to the last day. So I do remember, and I have been reminded of many of the challenges and pitfalls. And as I've said before, I think communication is so critically important. If you're not talking, you're not in a relationship.
Yeah.
And if you're in a relationship with someone who is not very honest and communicative, it can be an incredible struggle, and it can be
True.
really, really
Yeah.
difficult to feel as though you're in the relationship with them, if that makes sense. It can be so hard to know where your partner's head is at and what they're thinking. So, these are just some of the off the top of my head thoughts about my first relationship, how I broke up. Honestly, if you're ever wondering, like, should I break up with this person? Use all the tools available. You know, people will always say, oh, you can't break up with them over the phone, you can't do this, you have to do it this way. I would say if you can, give the person closure.
Yeah.
Try and do it in a nice way. You don't want someone to spiral. You know, if you really love this person, you don't want to break up with them in a vicious or mean way. This phone call that basically contributed to the end of the relationship was me being very communicative and saying, hey, like something really doesn't feel right. And I just knew in that moment when
Yeah.
he said that he wasn't sure he wanted to still be in the relationship, that I was so sure. And he seemed so disconnected and detached from it. I don't know if he really was or not, but I felt in that moment that, you know what, like if you're feeling unsure about continuing this relationship after 2.5 years, I'm pretty sure I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for. That might change, and it has changed since then, but I
Oh,
don't
really?
regret that decision. It's not something that he ever brought up afterwards as like a, you broke up with me over the phone or anything like that. Like it was kind of a mutual, like, okay, well, if you don't care anymore, then, you know, I'm out of here. And so in that way, it wasn't really like I broke up with him or he broke up with me. It was kind of like, we're done here.
I'm done
So
here.
I think you have to really trust your judgment and know your heart. And if
Yeah.
something is broken,
True.
it's okay to talk about it. And
Yeah.
if you realize that it can be put back together, then that's it. So I'd love to know your comments and your thoughts on this. If you want like a more in-depth discussion of how it worked or what I've learned, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. And I hope you're having an amazing Pride Month. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Mhm. Wow. Very true. Yeah. Wow. So I broke up with my boyfriend in 6 minute phone call by text a text. The link to the video will be the description below. Go and check them out and drop a like if you like and comment below if you want to see more reaction like this one. And subscribe if you're new and click the bell so you can be notified when I upload in my bye. Wow.